don't have the exact
Later na lang.
citation. Yes.
How does the president or the palace describe Rappler's reporting on the administration?
What I can say is that the president found it unfair for Maria Ressa to claim violation of freedom of the press when, according to him, Rappler has been very active criticizing individuals for violating the Constitution and the laws of the lands, and it turns out it is by itself violating the Constitution. In law, we have a saying, one should come to court with clean hands. Because the media industry is a public trust, one should exercise, I guess, privileges out of this public trust, also with clean hands. Before you criticize others, look into the mirror. Look at yourself first.
You've talked to the president about this?
Yes,
When was this?
last night.
Last night. And what was his sentiment?
Well, he just did not like the fact that Rappler was saying this is a result of the president's dislike for Rappler. Of course not. He had nothing to do with this decision. He was not even aware that there was this decision coming out.
Okay, RJ? Follow up? Joseph?
Sir, still on Rappler, is it possible that this will create a domino effect where other media companies would be dragged into the same investigation due to PDR issuances?
Well, I can confidently say that other online news agencies like Vera Files, Minda News, don't have PDRs. I can confidently say not only don't they have PDRs, they don't have PDRs with foreign entities given the power of negative control when it comes to amending their articles and bylaws.
Okay, Lanesca, follow up? Microphone.
Morning, sir. The President last year issued Memorandum Order 16 asking NEDA to lift foreign investment limits and support legislative initiatives that will bring about these changes, changing this 40% limitation provided by our Constitution. This is to raise the level of our competitiveness and to foster economic growth, according to the President. And yet, the chief government lawyer, Solicitor General Talida, is prosecuting a media entity for supposed violation of the 40%. So, is there I see a disconnect there, and how can the Solicitor General prosecute the Rappler or any other media entity for that matter for alleged violation of the 40% when he has issued a memorandum for liberalization of that 40%? What is the President's stand really?
Let me start by saying, with all due respect, that your questions are misleading. Number one, the Solicitor General has not said he will prosecute anyone yet. It is the SEC that submitted its decision to the DOJ for its consideration. Now, the conclusion that can be derived is possibly because the ruling of the SEC said that there was a violation of the anti-dummy law, that perhaps, but has not been decided upon by the DOJ, that there may be an investigation for a possible violation of the anti-dummy law. Second, please don't talk about a negative list, because a negative list does not include media ownership. The 60-40 rule is not applicable here because media entities are supposed to be 100% owned by Filipinos or Filipino corporations.
Sir, follow up. Yeah, sir, I mean, what is the President's stand? Is he for lifting that 40% for public utilities or otherwise?
Again, that's misleading because the President has not made any stand on media companies being required by the Constitution to be owned by 100% Filipinos. That's not covered by the negative list because it's an absolute rule that it can only be owned by Filipinos or Filipino corporations and associations.
Ano nga, sir, ang posisyon ni Presidente? Because Pernia already said...
Wala pong posisyon ng Presidente pagdating sa media ownership. Hindi po siya kasama sa negative list, dun sa listahan na pinapalift from the negative list. I think I distributed copies of that list about a month ago. Hindi po kasama doon ng media companies.
This sir, regardless nga po dun sa negative list. Under the Constitution, sir.
It depends kasi. Merong 60-40 rule which is applied to everyone.
Yes,
including
so-
retail trade. Pero may special rule pagdating sa media, 100%.
So is the president
Hindi siya kasama dun sa proposal ng presidente na i-relax. Okay? In other words, he is still for retention of the 100% rule as far as media ownership is concerned.
Okay,
he
thank
is
you.
for 100 pa rin.
Ay, nandiyan
For
na
mass
sa- Oo,
media.
kasi hindi nga po pwede siyang, yung sinasabi mo kasi,
Kahit-
yung may mga leeways ang executive.
Sir, but
Oo.
he is pushing for the amendment of the Constitution eh. So, kahit i-amend yung Constitution, gusto niya 100% pa rin. Yung sa mass media.
Pagdating sa media, hindi naman siya kasama, hindi siya priority na ma-liberalize. Do we really need foreign investors for media? Eh ngayon nga, 100% we have a thriving media business. Ito ba yung area na kinakailangan natin ng foreign investors? Hindi. I issued yesterday a statement on the decision of the SEC on Rappler in reply to the press conference conducted by executives of Rappler. We would like to deny, first and foremost, that the state has infringed on freedom of the press of Rappler or any of its reporters. Truth is, the reporter of Rappler is still in our press briefing. She is not being prevented from exercising her profession as a journalist. None of the individuals behind Rappler will be prevented from performing their duties as journalists. The decision ruled that Rappler Inc. and Rappler Holder Inc. violated the constitutional prohibition limiting ownership of mass media exclusively to Filipino corporations. I'd like to highlight that of the commissioners and the chairman of the SEC, President Digong only appointed one of the commissioners, Commissioner Aquino. All the other commissioners, including its chairperson, are appointees of President Noynoy Aquino. No? Now, the SEC decision has been made available to the public, and to summarize the decision, it said that the Philippine depositary receipt it had issued in favor of a foreign investor violates the constitutional prohibition against foreign ownership in media because it gave it negative control. 2/3 vote of the PDR holders was required under the agreement before Rappler Holdings can amend its articles or bylaws. You see, under the corporation code for existing corporations under the Philippines, no, before you can, for instance, sell any and all or substantially all of the assets of the corporations, a 2/3 votes is required. No? So you see here an instance where, although they are not shareholders, nonetheless, the holders of the PDRs are given the same right to control the company in terms of amending the articles and the bylaws. There is no affront to freedom of the press because there is no censorship. There is no facial censorship. Since there is no facial censorship, then there is no presumption of unconstitutionality. On the contrary, because this upholds the constitutional provision on limiting ownership of mass media to Filipinos, it enjoys the overwhelming presumption of constitutionality, plus the fact that it was rendered by the body with legal jurisdiction to decide in these matters, it enjoys the overwhelming presumption of validity. Local remittances of the BCDA is higher than the 3.93 billion in 2016. As part of its mandate, the BCDA will allocate 4.839 billion disposed assets to the Armed Forces of the Philippines Modernization Program and other beneficiary agencies. In addition, BCDA has also raised a total of 36.6 billion for the purchase of military equipment and maintenance of military facilities. No? Another piece of good news on Tanggal Bulok, Tanggal Usok Drive. We are pleased with the results of the Tanggal Bulok, Tanggal Usok Drive of the Interagency Council on Traffic under the Department of Transportation PUV Modernization Program, which began last week. As of 4 p.m. yesterday, January 15, we had 1,000 public utility and private vehicles, which were so far flagged down, ticketed, issued summons, and apprehended for various road safety and roadworthiness issues. Of this number, 80% are public utility vehicles, with most cases having defective parts such as kalbogulong, defective or no headlight, and the like, smoke belching, and other violations. No? I'd like to reiterate what we had mentioned yesterday, that today's increase in fuel prices is brought about by the movement in prices in the international market and not just because of trade. Our energy officials are closely monitoring the oil depots and gas stations to ensure fairness and utmost protection to the consumers in the implementation of the law. The DOE came out with consumer advisories last December 31. It met with oil companies last January 3. It asked for submission of notarized documents in relation to the determination of old and new stocks with December 31 as a tipping point. DOE will continuously conduct random checks on the depots and gas stations to ensure alignment of operations with data submitted. On the Sanofi refund, we welcome that refund, but the position of the Department of Health is for a full refund. Now, nonetheless, we view this latest step of the pharmaceutical company as a step in the right direction. We highlight that the refund will in no way affect ongoing investigations, which will ultimately determine whether or not there is criminal culpability on the part of